All right, so today we're going to talk about ecosystems, and we are going to put together an eco-column. Now, an ecosystem is a community of organisms interacting together with their environment. Living things, also known as biotic organisms, interact with non-living things, also known as abiotic organisms, like the soil, water, and air. What we're going to do is build an eco-column that demonstrates how this ecosystem works and how everything inside an ecosystem is all connected. Our eco-column is going to have 3 chambers in it. It's going to have an aquatic chamber. So aquatic means water. It's going to have a decomposition layer in the middle. And it's going to have a terrestrial layer at the top. And terrestrial is land. So we're going to show how the water and the decomposing layer and the terrestrial layer all work together in order to for everything within the ecosystem to survive. So within our ecosystem, within those 3 layers, we have 3 main types of living organisms. We have our producers, consumers, and decomposers. Producers are organisms that use energy to create, or energy from the sun to create their own food. So like plants. And plants do this via photosynthesis. So they use the energy that they get from the sun along with nutrients that they receive from the soil and water to produce their own food. So they don't need to eat food from anything else. They're producing food and then being available as food to the consumers. Okay, so producers make and release oxygen during photosynthesis, which the consumers need in order to breathe. So what plants give back to the environment is oxygen, and that's what we all use to breathe. So some examples of plants that we will use in our eco-column. In the aquatic level, we have what we're going to use in the ecosystem that we build here at home is duckweed. Okay, so I found this in a pond. It is an aquatic plant that floats on top of the water. Okay, we're going to talk more about what the plants actually do in the ecosystem once we get to that section. But this is what our producer in the aquatic level will be. And then the producer that we have in the terrestrial level I have some bean seeds and some radish seeds that I just have on a wet paper towel right here for now. And then I also have some grass seeds that will try to grow in the terrestrial level of our ecosystem. I have some like weeds here that I've pulled out of my lawn that already show the roots, that we already have the roots growing. So I might try to stick some of these already sprouted roots into the ecosystem and see if we can get these to take hold as well. As far as what the producers need, actually, you know what, we'll come back to that. Let's go through what the consumers and the decomposers are, and then we'll come back to what the needs are, because that will then lead into how we're going to put our ecosystem together and how they interact together. So those are the producers. In the middle layer of our ecosystem, we will have the decomposers. Okay? Decomposers are organisms that break down organic material. Basically, they eat dead things, and by digesting the dead matter, decomposers put the nutrients like nitrogen, potassium back into the soil for the producers. So again, like I said, we'll talk about some of the needs in a little bit, but this is what the decomposer's job is doing. So for our eco column, what we're going to put in to our decomposer level are some worms. Okay, so I have some worms that I dug out of my backyard. Again, everything that we put in our eco column, you should be able to find around your house. Oh, there it is. They were hiding on me. So I have some worms that I found in my house, and what these worms do is they will eat the dead leaves. I'll throw some dead leaves in there, and I have some fruit in there as well, and they will eat these dead organisms and break it down, and their waste, basically from eating the materials, then is the nutrients that goes into the soil for our producers. Okay, the last or the third thing that we will have in our eco column are the consumers. Okay? The consumers are organisms that get energy by feeding on the producers. So, or secondary consumers. So, consumers eat the plants. We're consumers. We're the animals. Anything that eats another animal or eats another plant is a consumer. Consumers produce, they release by breathing carbon dioxide, which the producers need for photosynthesis. So what we give to the plants is carbon dioxide that the plants then take and convert that carbon dioxide into food for themselves, and they release oxygen, which we need. So there's this symbiotic relationship between plants and animals right there, where they need us and we need them. And then, like I mentioned, the decomposers, what their job is to break down all of the dead materials and put nutrients into the soil. So the more nutrients that are in the soil, the healthier the plants can become. And the healthier the plants are, the more food they can produce. The more food they produce, the more oxygen we have to breathe. The more oxygen we have to breathe, the more we're eating and consuming, and then releasing carbon dioxide. And so it's just this whole great big cycle, which is exactly what we are going to demonstrate. So for our eco column, some examples of animals that we have, or consumers that we're going to put into our eco column, are some goldfish and some crickets. Now, with the quarantine and everything, I don't recommend going out to the store. You can find some bugs around your house, spiders. You can find crickets. Any bug will work if you want to put in there. You also don't necessarily need to put a consumer into your ecosystem. This will work if you don't have any consumers. But it's more fun to show a complete ecosystem if you're going to do it. I happen to have some lizards in my house that need bugs for eating. So I have to go to the pet store here and there to get some more bugs for them to eat. So that's where why I ended up getting some fish. But you don't have, again, you don't have to put anything into, you don't have to put any consumers into your eco column. This will work with just the producers and the decomposers. But it's more fun to put some consumers in there as well. All right, so now that we've gone over what an ecosystem is and the producers, decomposers, and consumers and what their role is in the ecosystem, let me show you the materials that we need and get started with building. All right, starting with the aquatic level, what you will need for building this level is a bottle where I cut just the very top off. You see this is the original one, so I didn't cut too much off, just the very tip of it, and I used an X-Acto knife here to cut the top of it off. You'll need some rocks, pebbles, something that we can put in the bottom of the eco column. Again, I have some fish that I happened to pick up at the pet store, but you don't need to put anything in there. And then I have my, this is duckweed. This is my aquatic plant here. So let's go ahead and build this layer, and then we can talk a little bit about what's gonna happen. Okay, so we're building our aquatic level. All we're gonna do is assemble the pieces together. So I'm just gonna put my rocks in the bottom. This is just mainly to help with the filtration. So I put some rocks at the bottom of this. Maybe give the fish a little place to rest. Okay, so I have some rocks in the bottom of this. I'm going to put my pond water. Take this giant leaf out. I put my pond water into my eco column there, and then I'm just gonna put my fish in here. Now, the eco column should be all self-sustaining, meaning everything in here, the plants will be making their own food and then giving food to the other organisms that are in here. So we shouldn't have to feed the fish. They will be producing their own food in here. So yeah, so now we have the aquatic layer built, and let's move on to the decomposer layer. All right, the middle layer of our eco column is going to be the decomposition layer. So what we're going to do is you're going to take a piece of string, and then you're going to take your bottle that you cut in half with the X-Acto knife, and we want the pouring side, not the other side. You're going to take a piece of string, and you're just going to thread the string up through the middle. Okay, and the reason for this is because we're going to stack these. I don't know if you can see that very well. And we want this string to go down into the water layer, our aquatic zone. Okay, and the reason for that is so that the water will travel up the string via the capillary action, which you can check out in one of my other videos. It will travel up the string through the decomposition layer up all the way to the terrestrial layer The water will also be evaporating up through the layers, but the string will just help ensure that it makes its way all the way up to where we want it to go. So I actually poured a little too much water into here. So I'm just gonna pour that out. Okay. And then we have, so I have my string now down into the aquatic zone there. Okay, and then I'm gonna get some rock to put down there so that the dirt doesn't go falling through the hole there. So let me just grab a rock here. Okay, so now I have my rocks down at the bottom that are kind of blocking the hole. I have my string that's going down into the aquatic zone. Now I'm going to put my decomposers, so my worms and some dirt, nice dirt, and there's a berry, a crushed berry in there for them to feed on. And then I'm gonna put some leaves because they want dead things, so they're gonna decompose. They're gonna work on breaking down all of these dead things and to create this nice rich soil. And then that's it for the decomposition layer, and then we will build our last and final layer. All right, for our third and final layer, we are going to make the terrarium part, so where we will grow our plants. You need a whole bottle for this, but it's not very easy to put stuff inside when we just have a little hole there. So what we're actually gonna do, what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your X-Acto knife, and this will be a good, like if you were struggling to cut the bottles with the other one, then at least I'm showing you here how to cut it, and then you could go back. But you're gonna cut the bottle about halfway, but we're not going to cut it all the way off. So let me show you really quick what I mean. Okay, bent my bottle there. I need to cut it a little bit more because it's not bending very easy yet. Alright, so I cut it so that I can just open the top, but then I don't want to cut that all the way off because I still need the top, because we're gonna seal this entire ecosystem together, so it's all enclosed. After we seal it, we're not gonna do anything. We're not gonna feed the fish, we're not gonna water the plants, we're just gonna stick it somewhere where it can get some sunlight, because plants need the sunlight to grow, and then we are gonna watch and see what happens. Okay, so for the terrarium level, this is where we're gonna plant our plants, and then maybe put a couple bugs inside and see what they do. So in order for us to plant plants, we need some dirt. First thing I'm gonna do, again, I'm gonna put this string, okay, that I have from my previous level. I'm gonna thread this through my bottle. Okay, and then make sure that's just sitting. So it looks like I might have a little bit too much dirt in here, so I'm just gonna take some dirt out. Move this over so you can see it a little bit better. Okay, you don't want the top of the bottle resting on anything. So if you can see, it's still touching the dirt. So I'm actually gonna take a little bit more dirt out so that it's not touching the dirt when I set the bottle on top. I want to make sure I leave my worms in there though. Okay, so I have my what's this called? String. Thank you. My string threaded through to my terrarium level. I'm going to put some rocks again at the bottom around the hole. Okay. And then I'm going to add some dirt. Add a little bit more dirt here in the bag. Okay. Now, I have a few options for plants. Now again, like if you don't have any seeds, you can probably just dig up something from your yard, but you need the roots. If you kill the roots, then you won't be able to replant it. I think I'm going to also try to put a little bit of this plant in there because all I have right now are seeds, and I'm not sure how well the seeds will grow. These are grass seeds, which should be fast growing, so I'm just going to sprinkle those on top. I'm going to kind of do some zones here because I'm curious. I'm going to run my own experiment and see what happens. So here I have some bean seeds and radish seeds that were inside, like in the wet paper towel, which actually I think I'm gonna leave it in the wet paper towel because I think that might help them start to grow a little bit more. I'm just gonna take them out. So I put one seed, so now I have one bean right there. And then maybe I'll do one other bean that I bury. And then I'll do the same thing with the radish seeds. So I have some radish seeds I'm putting on a wet paper towel. And we'll just put those right there. And then I have a couple radish seeds that I will bury as well. And then we can kind of see what happens. All right, I'm gonna water these to start since my dirt was a little dry. And then this is it. This is all the water that they're gonna get from the outside. Everything else will be coming from within. Okay, just for the heck of it, I'm gonna add a couple consumers. Okay, so these are some crickets. Just a couple crickets, we'll see what happens. And then note that I left a bunch of space at the top here because hopefully the plants will grow nice and tall. Oh, and I was gonna add a little bit of this one that's already growing, but I wanna make sure that I get these roots here, okay? If I break the roots, then it doesn't really, it's not going to do anything. And the plant will just die. So let's see here. All right, I trimmed it down a little bit because I don't need it that tall. Make some space. And let's see what happens. Most of science just kind of seeing what happens when we try things. All right, so let's seal this off and then let's talk about what we will expect to see happen. All right, now that we've built the eco column, let's talk about it a little bit. Okay, so we already talked about what we have inside, that we have our producers, our consumers, and our decomposers. So again, all three of those things have needs that make them rely on each other for survival. So a producer, what the producer needs is water, sunlight, carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and potassium. So remember, producers are the plants. So they need water, which they will get from the aquatic level. They need sunlight, which they will get from the sun. They need carbon dioxide, which they get from the consumers that are breathing. That's what we emit, that's what we release. So the fish and the crickets that are in there will provide them with the carbon dioxide. They also need nitrogen and potassium. These are nutrients that are found in the soil. So the decomposers, as they're breaking down the dead organisms, that's what they're putting into the soil, are the nitrogen and potassium. Okay, so those are the producer needs. The consumer needs are oxygen, which they will get from the plants. That's what the plants release during photosynthesis. They need food and they need water. So the water, again, is provided in the aquatic level, and the food will be produced by the plants. Okay, so the animals in there the little things in there will eat the algae and other producers. Okay, the decomposers, what they need are dead organisms for their food and water. Okay, every living thing needs water. So again, they'll get we put some food in there for our decomposers to work on, and then they'll get the water from the aquatic level. So what we're going to demonstrate with this ecosystem, the one thing I want you guys to focus on and learn about is the water cycle within the ecosystem. So how is the water cycle helping all of our organisms inside to survive? How is this actually working? How is the water going to get from the aquatic zone up to the terrestrial zone? Okay, so we have the water cycle in the ecosystem. So water starts in the aquatic level. Okay, the water vapor will rise to the middle and the top layers through evaporation. So as the sun heats up our echo chamber, the water will evaporate and move its way up. We also, in our ecosystem, we put a little string in there to kind of help things to make sure that the water gets through all of the levels. And again, I mentioned that works via capillary action, which, if you are unfamiliar of what that is, you can go back and check out one of my previous videos to learn about how water works that way, how it moves via capillary action. Okay, so on the way through the decomposition layer, the water brings the nutrients up from the decomposition layer to the soil in the top layer. Okay, the soil in the terrestrial layer then absorbs the water and those nutrients. The roots of the plant that I showed you earlier, they're like little fingers and little suckers. The roots of the plant suck up that water and suck up those nutrients, and then move the water and nutrients up through the roots into the stems and the leaves. Again, the water is needed to move the nutrients from the soil, which again, the nutrients are nitrogen and potassium, up to the stems and the leaves of the plants through capillary action. Plants need water and nutrients to grow stronger. As they grow taller, they reach towards the sun, which provides them with the necessary energy that they need for photosynthesis. So, photosynthesis is necessary for the plants to make their own food to survive. During this process, plants release oxygen, which is necessary for organisms to breathe. Things that we've mentioned already. It's just, I keep mentioning them because I want you to realize just how cyclical this all is, just how much we rely on each other for all of our needs. So then what happens, that's now the terrestrial layer is taken care of. Then what happens is that the water condenses. So remember, it evaporated up to the top, and now it's condensing, reforming in the soil. And what that's going to do is it's going to cause moisture droplets to form inside and then rain back down through the layers. So as it's raining back down, the water travels back through the decomposition layer, okay, which is going to add the moisture that we need in this layer to help the process, and then continue on back down to the aquatic layer, where it's bringing all those nutrients back down into the aquatic layer. And the plants down here are going to help keep the water nice and clear because they're working and producing their own food and energy as well. So the water, there's a few other things that are going on inside of the eco chambers. If you're really interested, especially if you're in middle school, you could look up the carbon cycle and the nitrogen cycle, because those also play a huge factor into what's happening in the ecosystem. But for upper L or lower L, if you want to just focus on the water cycle within the ecosystem, that's perfect. Again, I just want you to recognize that everything is all connected. We have the water, we have our aquatic layer, our decomposition layer, and our terrestrial layer. This is all sealed. I'm being very careful because I don't want it to fall, but as you can see, I'm holding it with one hand right now. It is all one piece. I am not going to alter this in any way. I'm not going to open it in any way. We're just going to let it do its thing, and see if we can demonstrate this water cycle that we just talked about, and see if we can actually create a functioning ecosystem. So I hope you guys are able to do this project. Excuse me. I hope you're able to do this project. Again, if you don't have all the materials, use what you have at home. You could use water bottles, juice bottles, anything that you can find. Clear is better, although you can see my decomposition layer is green. But clear is better. I couldn't find any clear tape, so I had to use duct tape, but again, if you had clear tape, that would be better. That way you could see through it. And the takeaway from this project that I really want you guys to understand is that everything in the world is connected. We need each other, and everything needs us, and we have to take care of each other. We have to help each other out. If one thing from this ecosystem is missing, the whole thing stops working. So if we no longer have sunlight, then the plants can't produce their own food. If we no longer have water, then we don't get the necessary nutrients that we need. If we don't take care of our environment, then we won't have an environment left to take care of. So, happy Earth Day, and I hope you have fun making and observing your ecosystem. I'm going to check back every couple days. I'll post some pictures so that we can see what's happening, and then we'll check on our seed experiment in the top to see which one of those seeds actually starts to grow and what worked better. Enjoy. I hope you really enjoy this project.
Happy Earth Day!